to acknowledge all my coworkers, Patrick Jose from NDSU, Adam Varenhorst, Philip Rosenbroom, and Bradley McManus and Patrick Wagner from South Dakota State University. We've been working on the red sunflower seed weevil resistant issue for quite a few years now, and we'll present some of the results. Most of you are aware of the red sunflower seed weevil and its economic importance. It's recently been the #1 insect pest in both South Dakota and North Dakota. And the main damage is done by the larval feeding on the seed, the developing seed. And as you can see in the picture in the center, there is a lot of weevils on this head. It was taken down in South Dakota. And that's the situation down there. We see on an average of, over 100 weevils per head. Compared to North Dakota, we're lucky to get more than 20 weevils per head. Through the National Sunflower Association surveys, red sunflower seed weevil has consistently increased from 2019, partly due to the drought, but also to the concentrated production of sunflowers, especially in South Dakota. Then recently, over the years, sunflower production has decreased. And in South Dakota, I know for sure, in visiting with some of the growers and crop consultants down there, that it was due to the difficulty in controlling red sunflower seed weevil. From our IPM crop survey in North Dakota, we scouted 90 fields last year in 23 counties, and we had an average number of weevils per head from 1 to 25. And most of the weevils were found on the field edge, 71%, and 29 within the field. And you can see the red triangles there. That's where most of the weevils were found, down in the south central or southern part of the state. And the east central and the southwest also had very high populations. We rely on our insecticides as the #1 method for control of the red sunflower seed weevil. The pyrethroids are our main group of insecticides, 3A, that we use for control. We do have other insecticides registered, the carbamates, the group 1A, and then there's a premix called Verseed. But the efficacy of these two products, 7 and Besiege, are not as good as the pyrethroid insecticides when you have susceptible weevil populations. And the insect guide is available now for 2025, and it's pink, the cover. We did do an insecticide study up in Minot last year. We planted late to encourage weevil infestations and get more damage. Then we sprayed August 16th and we harvested October 16th. And we used a tractor-mounted CO2 boom for spraying. And we typically will time the applications for the R5.3 growth stage when 30% of the florets are open, and then the weevils have reached threshold. And then we have to hand thresh the heads. We go out and select 10 per flock, and we run them through the South Dakota benchtop seed cleaner, and then we take a subsample of 100 seeds and assess them for damage by the weevil. We did 12 insecticide treatments this year, and the untreated check, of course. And the ones in the top there in the white are all pyrethroid insecticides. And then we added Exponent, which is a synergist, which is supposedly supposed to enhance the efficacy of the insecticide and kind of make it hot or more potent to kill that insect. So we tested the sauna for your Baythroid with and without exponent. And then the one in the red box is Interest. That's a spinosad. That's from a natural occurring bacterium in the soil. It's not registered as sunflower. Then the green box is malathion and Pilot 4E, which are both organophosphates. And penicillin is the new one that is coming out from Syngenta, and it's a group 30. Safina is the insecticide that's used for insects with piercing, sucking mouth parts, and it's especially common to use it for soybean aphid. And we decided that we would throw that in just to see if it had any efficacy against weevils. So just a little bit on penicillin. It is a group 30 isoxylenes, and it's a GABA receptor antagonist. So it interferes with the brain functioning of the insect. It will be getting a registration this year, 2025, for the certain crops. And the uses that will be registered in this first wave of penicillin will be foliar insecticide use for soybean, stink bug, and stem borer control, potato, Colorado potato beetle. As a soil applied insecticide, it'll be labeled for corn rootworm control. As a seed treatment application, it'll be labeled for wireworms in both wheat and pulse crops, and seed corn maggots in pulse crops. So that'll be the first wave, and then assuming everything will be going well for that, they plan to have a wave 2 and wave 3, which they are aware of the red sunflower seed weevil pyrethroid resistant issue, and they're hoping to get that into one of the next waves. Unfortunately, they expect it to come too late for this year's field season, so it'll come sometime late summer into the fall is what they're hoping for, pending what EPA does. So here's some of the data with penicillin for a glass vial bioassay. You can see we tested 4 different rates, and all of the rates worked very well. We had very high percent mortality, and we collected weevils from both North Dakota and South Dakota, which you can see in the graph. And our controls had very low percent mortality, which indicate that the weevils were very healthy. And here's some of the results from our insecticide foliar study against red sunflower seed weevil. First, we'll look at the percent damaged seed. Here you can see the untreated check is quite high, 11.2% damaged seed, and also the pilot is quite high. And all of these treatments were not significantly different from the untreated check. Included the Safina, which isn't surprising. The pilot's a little more surprising, but Porphyrophos does have a short residual, and the weevils can reinfest fields for a period of almost a month. And then the next group is the Interest, malathion and penicillin low rate, kind of the intermediate insecticides in terms of performance. You can see they were significantly lower than the untreated check in percent seed damage. And then our last group is the pyrethroids with and without the synergist and the high rate of penicillin. All of these were significantly lower damaged seed than the untreated check, and they're all lumped together. For yield, you can see we had the lowest yield with the untreated check, and then followed by the pilot 4E And then the Sabina had slightly higher yield, and it was significant from the untreated check. And then all the other treatments were also significantly higher than the untreated check. I put a red arrow by the top 4 yielders, which were Warrior and Baythroid with the synergist, and then Panazoline at the high rate. And interesting and trusted quite well, even though, had a little bit higher percent damage fee. So if we look at the cost, you can see the pyrethroids are the cheapest to use per acre. When you add in that synergist, it more than doubles, sometimes triples in cost. So, and if you go back to the slide, you can see we didn't see a significant benefit from adding the synergist. It was comparable to the pyrethroid tested without the synergist. So we didn't get an added benefit there, and it will add cost to your inputs. So interest is very high. It's mainly used in vegetable crops that are higher value. And it's a popular insecticide that's relatively safe. Malathion and Pilot are a little more expensive. For Paraphos, we did test the high rate. We don't know what Vaseline will cost yet, and Sabina, being an aphid insecticide, is a little bit higher, as you would say. So our plans are to continue field efficacy testing in 2025, especially any new products. And then if more data is needed to support Panazoline for registration for red sunflower seed weevils and sunflower, we will certainly do that because it really does look promising. However, Adam has tested it with those high populations of 100 weevils plus per head, and he didn't get as good control as we did with the lower populations. So I think right now South Dakota is just facing an extreme situation due to the resistance and we have developed wreath rates and other reasons. But insecticides, we shouldn't be looking at them as a silver bullet. We can't really count on it because no single method can really solve a complex pest issue. So we really need to start looking towards a combination of different strategies to manage red sunflower seed weevil sustainably. And that's called integrated pest management. And right now, the weevil is bigger than the pyrethroid knockdown, because the resistance in South Dakota. So we have done some glass bioassays last year in Minot as well. We put 20 weevils in per bio and then assessed the mortality at 24 hours. And we tested the 4 most commonly used and registered products for sunflower: Asana XL, Baythroid XL, Delta Gold, and Warrior 2. And we started with the high rate, which is listed here. And then we just halved it for each of the dose. There were 6 different doses. We were trying to do a dose response glass bioassay. So as you can see in the results, they're very consistent. All of the insecticides in different doses, we had 100% mortality. And very low mortality in untreated chaff, which means that those weevils were quite healthy. And we weren't able to calculate any LD50 or LD90 values, which is when 50%, 90% of the population dies. So we can conclude that the Minot population is extremely susceptible to all of our pyrethroids tested. Now, Adam did this in South Dakota as well, in the same pyrethroid insecticides, and used the same method. So he used a resistance ratio where you have the LD50 for the test population, and then the LD50 for a known susceptible population. And this year, he usually uses our North Dakota weevils, but this year he used the South Dakota weevil population out in the western part of the state near Sturgis, which is susceptible. And then the central part of the state has resistance. So once you get that ratio, if it's less than 5, the population is susceptible. If it's 5 to 10, it's moderately resistant, and greater than 10 is highly resistant. So you can see here just about all of, for 5 of the locations I'm showing, just about everything was resistant for all of our different insecticides. So LD50s and 90s for those resistant populations are off the charts. So anyway, for the South Dakota red sunflower seed weevil, we know the resistance is fairly widespread and common in central South Dakota. Then there were 2 locations out west in the West River area, and they were all susceptible. So because we're seeing resistance across multiple active ingredients or products with different active ingredients, we do have cross resistance. So these products in general should not be used. They're in South Dakota for control of the red sunflower seed weevil right now until we can find an alternative. Throwing more pyrethroids on resistant weevils is like throwing water on them. Here's kind of a map of where we're seeing resistance and susceptibility. North Dakota so far has no resistance detected. I've had a few complaints down south here, but we don't know. I haven't run a bioassay down there within the last year. So here's the susceptible site way out west, and you can see the central area of the state is the hot spot. So for looking at IPM, we do have pest identification, pest monitoring, and economic thresholds developed and established and well used. We do have multiple cultural control strategies we could start to implement. Biological control, there is parasitoid wasp that will help manage and reduce long-term populations of weevil. And also there's some host plant resistance that has been developed. Now for South Dakota, chemical control is not an option. So cultural strategy, certainly crop rotation, planting a non-host crop, either canola or some other broadleaf crop, or small grains or corn would work, but definitely sunflower on sunflower or sunflower and type rotation is going to favor the development of red sunflower seed weevil population. Maybe we could increase the crop rotation window 2 or more years to break the life cycle of the weevil. This is from Dr. Jared Persiska, and he showed that there is later is better for weevils. So if you can plant earlier, it's much better. And also if you can use an early maturing variety, that will help reduce weevil infestations. Then there's trap cropping, the same idea. You plant an early maturing hybrid on the field edge, and then the late maturing hybrid on the inside, and that earlier one will attract the weevils first, and they are edge insects, so they love to infest the edge first. And then they'll concentrate them to make it easier to manage. And if you're in a susceptible area, you can apply insecticide to the trap crop on the edge, or you can destroy it. Parasitic wasps are known, and there's some that are excellent in finding the eggs of the weevils, and they will kill the egg and larvae. In a survey that Larry Charlotte did, he found anywhere from 2 to 24% parasitism rate in the weevil, and this was in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. So that needs to be explored. Now, for those of you who are following chlorpyrifos, we will unfortunately not have it this next year in sunflower. The new ruling goes into effect, and only the 11 uses approved by the federal courts will be available for the crops that's in North Dakota and South Dakota. It's alfalfa, soybean, sugar beet, grain, and winter wheat. And they tried to get a section 24C in South Dakota, but it was denied. So sign up for our award-winning newsletter so you can get in-season updates on pest, agronomy, weather, and much more. And here's the code to sign up for it. Just go online and enter your email address. And that's all I had. I'd like to thank all my hard workers for doing the weevil collecting and helping with weeding.